Hello and greetings to everyone who is taking a moment to join us for this presentation, this conversation, actually. I want to welcome you to C3S's very first coffee and chat. So if you have a cup nearby, please feel free to take a sip. This will be a conversation over coffee to just talk about some things happening within our space, within our society, within our community that impacts how we live, it impacts how we work, and it impacts how we serve. So again, thank you for taking time to join us for our very first coffee and chat conversation with C3S. So C3S, what is C3S? C3S is Community Connections Consulting Services, which is a consulting firm that serves community. My name is Angeline Johnson, and I serve as the CEO and founder of C3S, or Community Connections Consulting Services. I have been in business since 2019, engaged in supporting communities across the US and internationally. I have an amazing team of colleagues and associates that also engage in this work. One of them is with us today, Dr. Naketa Jones. So excited to have her as we enter into this first coffee and chat conversation about AI. If you're like me, every time you turn around, every time you look at your phone, you look at your computer, you look at your TV, you look at any kind of electronic device, you see buttons that are popping up talking about AI and AI assistance. And somehow it is become just an everyday part of our lives. And not only do we find this in our everyday life, we are finding it in our everyday work life as well for many of us. So we wanted to take some time today to have a conversation about AI and what it means and what are its implications within our everyday life and within our workspace. One of our associates is Dr. Naketa Jones, and I want to share a bit about Dr. Jones. So Dr. Jones blends over 20 years of experience and expertise in education and business strategy, and is currently focusing much of her work on AI ethics and diversity. Dr. Jones holds a doctorate in educational leadership from Bowling Green State University, a master's of public administration, and a bachelor's of arts from the University of Toledo in Ohio. She contributes her knowledge by teaching communication, critical thinking, and writing composition at Baker's College in Port Huron, there in Michigan. She also is a manager and creator of Ethical AI Solutions LLC, where she crafts critical AI policies and provides safety and compliance support. Furthering her commitment to ethical leadership, she's pursuing a leadership professional in ethics compliance, which is an LPEC certification. Dr. Jones is the founder of Human Driven Tech, which is a nonprofit that is driven to bridging the digital divide through software solutions in education. Dr. Jones, I am humbled to have you join us and to share your experience and expertise in the space of AI. Again, like I said, I open up my phone, I turn on my TV, I open my laptop, I constantly get alerts and see new buttons showing up to connect me to AI in my everyday space and my workspace. Can you share and just talk about what exactly is AI? What is it really?
Well, Angeline, thank you so much for having me here to have this important conversation. I feel it is really important to just start having conversations about it, start learning about what it is, what it can do, not be afraid of it, but start to embrace it and learn. So I want to thank you for having this important conversation. And I am honored to be here to just talk with you about some of the things that I've learned. I think for everyone who works with the population, who works with clients, who work with students, other businesses, just work in general. I think it's all of our responsibility to learn as much as we can about what AI does because it's like you said, it's everywhere. It's in every single aspect of our lives, it seems. And so We understand that because it is, and because it makes money, because there's so many opportunities for businesses and education and nonprofits to benefit from the ability to create things and to make money. This industry is huge, and so it's not going anywhere. It's not one of those things that we just kind of, see and hear about it and it just disappears. We see it growing and really changing as we wake up and go to sleep, and we wake up and there's a whole new set of things that we have to now learn. So with that, AI is not going anywhere. We need to understand it. And with that understanding comes these important conversations. What AI is, wow. So my understanding in studying it, and I want to kind of put this out to say that I feel like I'm no expert necessarily. I just saw it just like you did, in terms of it um, being able to dominate the critical thinking spaces, the educational spaces, the spaces where we literally would create things with our hands and spend hours upon hours of creating things. We now see this thing that can create it with just a push of a button. And so I became kind of intrigued. And so, because I am in the educational space, I feel that educators, when new technology comes, we either want to, hide from it and run from it, or we tend to just kind of fight it. Like, we don't want any part of it. We're just going to kind of fight this thing because we want to keep doing the same thing that we're doing as we did before.
Mhm.
However, for me, when I saw and I understood a little bit what AI was, I wanted to fight it, so I wanted to say, you know what, I'm just gonna just have to learn my enemy. If I'm gonna fight this thing, I have to learn what it is and try to combat it with everything that I had. And so after learning it and studying it, I understood that this is something that we have to become partners and really understand. So I want to reiterate that it's all of our responsibility to become experts in the AI. AI is basically a simulation of what human beings can do. And we saw that when AI became really popular, it started to really kind of transcend the writing and the art spaces, how it literally can take words and create images. And so in terms of like a machine being able to really do things, we kind of thought the AI was going to really take over the industries of like, the mechanical of pushing a button or creating an object or creating parts or things like that. But it really started to really gravitate towards the arts, like the writing and the art and the drawing and images and things like that. And so if you want to think of it as, okay, humans can do that, right? Humans can write and do poetry or write a book or create an essay. Well, now we have AI that simulates what or replicates what humans can do in that aspect. So basically, it's an algorithm. And an algorithm is what's trained over time. And so you can think of it as software that is used to kind of propel like say a computer. So like for example, you have Chat GPT that a lot of people are they understand what that is because it took over when about a year ago when everybody was talking about Chat GPT and what it can do. And so it really just takes information that we have created over time. And so it takes this information and then predicts. So think of like spell check, where we start to misspell a word. And so if this software understands what the word is and that typically humans would misspell a certain word in a certain way, then it predicts what the word should be. Or
Mm,
think of when you are typing out an email, for example, and it finishes your sentence.
yes,
Typically,
yes.
typically when humans write words in that way, then it would predict what the next word would be. So it learns over time. It's trained. It takes information that us as humans put out there on the internet, that we put into a certain, think of it as like a box, and then it takes all this information, this data from this box, and then starts to generate information. So it
Wow.
predicts, it learns, it starts to, and it learns over time. So when more humans use this box, think of like Chat GPT as being the box. When humans use it more and more, it starts to learn faster and it gets smarter. So it's created by humans. Humans create this, humans develop this, and it literally just takes our information and it is able to help us to create more things faster.
Wow.
Some would even say better, and some would even say smarter. But it really just takes a lot of the things that humans can do, and it simulates. So it basically just takes it and replicates what a human can do. So the way that I use AI is I try to figure out, okay, what is it that I want to do? And then I might go to Chat GPT and I might ask it for, ask it information. And so it allows, what it does is it allows me to kind of think broader. So there might be things that I didn't think about, that I didn't, anticipate, or I didn't consider, but then Chat GPT might give me that information. Now, why is it giving me information that I might not have considered? Because it's taking information from you, from other people, other sources, and it brings it together in one space. So it allows us to think broader. It allows us to be more multidimensional in a sense. So it's not just us creating it. It's like it's a collective in a sense.
That is so interesting. You raise a point that I had not thought about with AI. Is that there, just like everything, there are ranges of how strongly it shows up. So I appreciate spell check and have utilized spell check for many, many years in my documents, not really putting the connection that that's AI. It
Yes,
it's predicting what I intended to say based on the rules of and not only spell check, but also the grammar check. Is predicting and assuming what it is that I'm most likely trying to say and communicate, and then giving me helpful feedback back to ensure that it's correct, and ensure that it's presented in the best way possible. I remember the iteration before Word, it had the spelling check. But then when the grammar check came, I didn't really necessarily like that, because that's not necessarily the way I wanted to say it. But it
yeah,
would make me pause to say, well, do I want to say it that way, or do I want to phrase it that way, or do I want to shift it this way, or do I want to put the comma over there? When based on the rules, it might have some variation. So thank you for drawing that out. AI has been with us for a really long time, just not
absolutely.
called out as AI, just tools within software.
Absolutely. And since the 1950s, so when we were not thinking about, this thing producing and creating, there were people who understood that collections of data can be collected and sorted, and then used, and given code can be used in different ways. So there's different kinds of AI or algorithms, or autonomous systems. You even think about how when we drive, how there's MapQuest, and how we start off with MapQuest, and then there's Waze, and those are algorithms. And so what happens is there's models basically that replicate the world. So you have the world, you have the city of Sterling Heights or Detroit, and so it uses a model that replicates those areas. And then these algorithms are then used to then figure out how fast can I get from point A to point B based upon the replication of a simulation. And so that's how we get our map quest. Those are algorithms. It helps us, move through traffic. It helps us to get from point A to point B a lot faster. It helps us to avoid traffic. It's literally just taking data and
Mhm.
creating instructions on what to do if you are in a situation. It's gotten so sophisticated to where you now it's telling us when a great time to leave would be, or
Yes.
leave at this time, leave at that time, or there's more traffic or more accidents. And so when we think of those things, those are algorithms, and AI is just another form of an algorithm that has been used to do a different kind of thing since the 1950s, even early 1950s actually, where there were scientists, people who really wanted to figure out what can we do with data,
Mhm.
if we code it a certain way, to create a thing or an output based upon instructions. And so
Mhm.
ChatGPT, you give it instructions, you give it a prompt, and then it takes a collection of data and then gives us information based upon what humans have been able to answer and to give over time. So it's really interesting that there's so many of them. It's not just one. And so I think now, since it's kind of been a slow growth over time, just like you said,
Mhm.
it's been with us all of our lives. Think Surrey, think even when we watch Netflix and or
Yes. It
YouTube.
tells me what movie.
Yes, and it's based upon algorithms. When we watch a movie, it says, "Hey, would you like to watch this?" Or "I'm sure you would like this." And so it just becomes embedded in everything that we do. It helps
Can we talk about that? Can we kind of
absolutely.
pause there? Because I really want to drive home just how embedded it is in everything that we do, and we just have not necessarily classified it previously as AI, but AI has really been with us. So
Yes.
the Netflix example is a perfect one where it asks, if you like a movie or if you don't like it, you can click and select if you like it or don't like it. And based on how we respond, it will then begin to give us suggestions about movies. The same thing with our like Pandora and our music. If
Yes.
you know me, I love my music. And I definitely was one that would like, yes, I like that one. And I would see the frequency of how often it would be played based on me having notated that I liked a particular song. And it became like it was uncanny
Mhm.
how it would bring up. I love 90s R&B. It's the era I grew up in. And it would bring up songs I had completely forgotten about, but they were like my favorite songs
Yeah.
back when I was younger, and they would come back up. But it's all a part of this technology, this AI, and I've assumed everyone knows what that stands for. Artificial intelligence, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. It,
Absolutely.
it's 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 just amazing. And even example also, like you said, with MapQuest and with Waze, and I've seen the progression of it as well as it's becoming even more in tune with how it gets me from where I want to go and letting me know what's ahead and the speed and what time I'll get there and when to best leave. It's so embedded. Even in we're on a Zoom platform right now.
Mhm.
I noticed that there's a button now that's an AI companion.
Mhm.
I clicked it like, what does this mean? And it creates these wonderful summaries of meanings, which are so helpful in
Yes.
just navigating life and work.
Right. Right.
So along that line, what is your thought? You've given examples of wonderful ways that, in my opinion, I think the opinion of many of us, AI, even though we may not have realized that it was AI, has been really helpful.
Yes.
It's helped to simplify, it's helped to uh, create opportunities that we didn't know were there. It helped us to frame, where we go and how to be more efficient. These are all positive things. Um, what are some of the concerns though
Mhm.
with this technology and how it is just again becoming so immersive in our everyday lives and in our professional spaces too? What are
Yeah.
some concerns that are out there?
Yeah, and now this is where it gets a little hairy because there are some wonderful things that AI has been able to do and that will continue to do. For example, let's take the example of when it recommends that song that based upon what you like. So when you hit the like button, that you like that song, you want to hear more of it. So it will start to kind of gravitate towards those songs because you're liking it. Or even the videos in YouTube. When you watch videos and you're watching certain ones over and over again, it will start to suggest movies that, or videos that that it thinks you like. And so it not only does it by you, it also does that from other people as well. So if Angeline goes in and says, okay, I like this song and this song and this song, then it how it recommends is that other people who like those songs also like other songs as well. So it may recommend songs that other people like based upon you, two or three or four or 50 or 1,000 or 10,000 people like. And so it will start to recommend those songs as well. And so it's how you kind of get this whole compilation of recommended songs or videos and things like that. Here's where it gets a little tricky is entertainment. That's fine, right? Because, oh, I like this genre of music, I like this artist, and so I want to hear only from them. When it's the other side or the other artist or the other recommendations that you could have gotten but weren't recommended, that you don't get to see, that's where it gets a little tricky, because
Okay.
if it's not recommending it and you still go by the recommendations that it gives you, you're only seeing that one side. And so it could be a good thing, right? Because it's filtering out the things that you may not like. But what about that song that you could have listened to, but it didn't recommend it because other people were not listening to it as well? It may
Mm,
not be
okay.
as detrimental because it's entertainment. But where it could get tricky is, say, if you are trying to learn something, maybe on YouTube, and you're trying to learn, something about the election coming up. And you are starting to watch all these videos and these talks about certain candidates and things like that. It will recommend what you like. But what about the other side of it? What about the other videos that weren't recommended that you could have gotten information from, but it wasn't recommending that for you? It's not in your visual, it's not in your peripheral. And so you continue to watch. And so you may be influenced,
Mm,
or you may be swayed because you're only seeing that one side. And so that's where it can get kind of. Now, here's the other part to that. When it comes to who's making the recommendations, right? So think about the genre of music that you like.
mhm.
The people who are typically making those recommendations are typically people who may think in similar ways. They may do things similar to what you do. They may um, do things that that maybe are similar to your values or what you like or what you appreciate. Um,
Right.
and so they you kind of think of this as like, and I like how um a research person put this, is that you are creating like a digital avatar of yourself online, to where if you think about all the videos and all the music and all the blogs, all the educational material that you like, you're literally creating a digital avatar of yourself, so that whoever is trying to connect to your avatar, they're sending you information to that avatar that they think your avatar would like. So if
Okay.
Angeline, the Democrat who loves to eat sushi, who loves salsa music, who loves to go out only on Fridays, never on Saturdays. And so it starts to kind of create this persona of you. Um, and
Okay.
then based on your persona, is going to do things like to sell to you or to try to educate you in certain ways. Here's the
Right.
other side to that. Um, think about the other means of you not getting the information that you could have been benefited from if
Mhm.
that avatar was not created. So here's where it can get kind of dangerous. Um, think of, like, for example, the music. If you are the one that's recommending music that actually other people would listen to because of likes, because of the time of day, because of how you listen to music and you're liking one but not liking the other. What happens is that the people who like it the most gets the voice. And so what about the people who are not liking the music, or who don't get access to the platform, or who don't get to say what they like or what they don't like? Their voice is ultimately excluded. And so with entertainment, that's fine. But then when it comes to making those tough decisions in the community, or funding, or access to education, the people who are not liking, or who don't even understand it, or who don't have the voice, or people who you look like you and I, don't even get to make any kind of decisions at all, our voices end up becoming excluded. And so when you think of the people who get to, have access to technology, who get to like and share and make all these decisions, or the people who actually create these algorithms who don't look like us, that are
Mm,
basing the outcome on the majority, then the minorities don't have that voice. They don't have the ability to say, well, I like that too, or I need this as well, or I need access to this. It's either not included or forgotten, or just
mm,
blatantly not included at all. And here's the thing about exclusion: it doesn't appear to be exclusionary as we may think when we think about like hiring practices, or who gets to go to one school versus another. It tends to be invisible, and it tends to be under the radar. So we really just don't get to
mm,
see the impact. But here's the thing: the impact is faster. It has more impact on the types of people that it affects, how many it affects, and at the rate. Because think about if we're hiring someone and we want to exclude one person because of the way that they look, or their education, or whatever. AI can exclude thousands of people because of how they look, or what they don't have, or whatever. And so when we think of the impact it has on excluding, not including, not being responsible, it can be very dangerous, and it can be catastrophic in a sense.
yeah, and can we pause a little bit there? Because I think, we started off the conversation just giving a general overview of what AI is and how it's showing up and has been showing up in our lives in very nice ways. We're talking about maps and music and TV, and that's great. But some of the examples you gave go beyond entertainment. It goes into how we work, how we get jobs, how those who are in uh, decision making roles view um, us through this tool of AI. Another example that perhaps we didn't necessarily group as AI, but I'm sure at some point in time we all have experienced is in hiring. You submit a resume. Now, I'm giving away my age. I won't group you in. I'll give away my age. I remember when you would apply for a job
Yeah.
and you would send a paper resume and you would mail it or fax it,
Yeah.
and a person would look at it and make a determination about whether or not to interview you. Fast forward a couple years, a few years, few, and now you apply online,
Mhm.
and employers may not even ever see your resume based on the criteria that's been set up in the system that receives your submission, your interest for that position, having algorithms in place that are, I'm sure, were created to lift up and highlight those candidates that have the most ideal background and skill set. So many don't even get to a point of being looked at by actual human being.
Yes.
And that's been around for a long time, but that's AI. That is AI.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
it's showing up not only in our entertainment and our social and our off work time, it's showing up in how we do work. Again, I gave the example of in Zoom. There is an app that's there now. or a button that's there now to highlight AI. There's actually a whole setup platform behind the scenes now that I got notification about how to include AI, where it would actually help schedule meetings and phone calls and all kinds of things through AI.
Mhm.
Do you, I have mixed feelings and I have a confession. Um, I am just now really being mindful of AI.
Mm.
Had memories of, movies and fears that, robots going to take over the world. Not saying I had that fear, but when I would think about AI, it was this dangerous, potentially harmful and likely harmful integration of and force of technology to replace humanity and human interaction.
Yeah.
And I'll share even in the professional space on LinkedIn, which I know many professionals are plugged in and connected to LinkedIn. What recently showed up, at least in my profile, and I don't know if it's been there, I just didn't pay attention, or if it is really recent,
It's pretty
is now
recent.
okay. So it's now the ability to have you do your post to have an AI rewrite of your post
Yeah.
um, that is then shared.
Yeah.
And I saw that, and I'm like, I think I'm a pretty strong writer. I don't need to have a rewrite, but what is this? Let me click on it. And every once in a while, I'll click on it to see what it will present. It presents some nicely worded, articulated thoughts that
Yeah.
you can tell were pulled from what I initially put and some other things added. Okay. And I saw a colleague. So I did a post recently that started off with the AI rewrite of what I was sharing about, which was about AI.
Mhm.
And acknowledge, that was AI rewrite. This was my original post.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts, from my network? And one of my questions was I ethically responsible to let you know that I use AI to write this post? I mean, it's not an academic paper. It's not something that's going to be published in that formality, but those aren't my words. Those are under my profile. Do
Yeah.
I have an obligation to let you know that those aren't my words? It was my concept, my thought, my idea,
Yeah.
but what came before you were not my words. And was I obligated to share that with you? What are your thoughts about the ethical impact of AI, where not only is it a tool that helps to increase productivity, help us to be more effective and efficient and more thorough in how we approach work, but it also gives us opportunity to communicate and press out work and push out work and efforts.
Yeah.
What are ethical responsibilities in this new world where AI is just so prevalent and relevant to a point where it is forecasting and presenting who we are
Mhm.
as us in some cases?
Yeah, yeah, great question. So I want to go back to your first point about hiring. So when it's interesting because when we look at the progression of or the changes in applying for jobs, right? Like you said, we wrote a resume and then we would even mail it. They would even come with like I remember even the days of like, printing out your resume and getting the envelope that matched it and those days are completely gone. Gone
Mhm,
also
mhm,
are the days of even a couple of years ago when we were told to write resumes and put color, even our picture, make everything colorful and appealing to the human eye. What we're now told is that we have to make our resumes readable by machines.
yeah,
Um, don't use color, don't use your image, don't use words that computers will not completely and directly translate into what you can do for that position or
mhm,
that employer because it will not be accepted. You can be the most stellar candidate in the world, but if that computer if that AI is not reading and translating exactly what the employer wants, you to have, it will not get past that point. And so think of how many people who still write for the human, who don't even understand that these are machines, these are algorithms that will be reading your resume. And not
Mm,
just your resume, but other content as well. And so when I talk about that avatar that we are creating, out there in this digital space, um, we literally have an avatar that's out there that's working and doing things for us, out there in the digital world, and it interacts with machines, it interacts with AI, it interacts with other avatars out there. And so that's kind of the space that we're building, which is really interesting and weird and exciting at the same time, but scary. And so when I tell people about, how to write their resume and how to present themselves, it has to go through that tracking system, that employer tracking system, that your resume goes through to even
mhm,
get to a human being, which is very interesting. Um, so I think that in general, we have to be ethically responsible in terms of like how we present our avatar, but also know that other people have avatars out there as well. So other people are using AI, other people are, hitting that button when it comes to LinkedIn, and they're recreating, their posts, and they're putting information out there that has been generated by AI. And so um I think what's interesting is we've had this conversation in my college, Baker College, where I teach writing. When we're teaching students, how to navigate through the space, when from the perspective of where we are coming from. So you and I are coming from the perspective of we were graded on how to structure a sentence, how to write a thesis statement, how to do research, and how to,
mm.
how to create, content based upon your critical thinking skills. Well, now it's coming to a point to where they need to be evaluated on how they prompt AI, on how they use AI to write, on how they use AI to create things. And so I think it's a shift, right? I think it's a shift from, I really wrote that, or that was really me. I did create that with my own thought process. I really created this thing. But when AI can do those things, what then does the human do? Like what
Wow.
then are we supposed to do? And I think it's kind
Right.
of getting us to a point where it's kind of taking us through, we understand like Maslow's hierarchy of need. It's like the foundation, and then it's, self-actualization at the very top. Well, now the AI can do like the basic things, right? Like we understand in just basic living, food, clothing, and shelter. Well, in creating things in business world, is creating the thing, right? And so now we can go to the next level, and even the next level up, because AI is doing the things that we thought we had to do, but now we can actually use what AI is giving us to actually solve real world problems. I think that's where we should kind of look at it from that perspective, and not look at it from the fundamental aspect of, you know, yeah, I went to school and I learned how to write a sentence correctly, and I know how to conduct research. Well, AI can do that too. So then how do you take what AI can do and do something more, with what it can give you? And so I
Wow.
think that we should be teaching our students how to do this, and not just looking at it as they need to do exactly what we've done, because this is a completely different shift. This is a completely different world. So when it comes
Right.
to like posts and things like that, everybody who has access to the platform will be able to do that. So I don't think we should say, oh, well, this post has been created with AI, because everybody has access. The thing that I'm concerned about are the people who don't have access, the people who maybe don't understand, or who don't have the ability to even get to the point to even create a post to put it out there. People who are still able to to do these kind of things that you and I are starting to learn how to do. Now, when you say that you are kind of learning, you're new to learning AI, well, think of the people who created AI and think of the people who, have made money from AI and who are continuing to build upon it. We are kind of, I think, at the back end of the foot race, when it
Mhm.
technology. But I think about the people who haven't even put the shoes on. Where are they going to be? What happens to them? And that's where that whole digital divide, that's where the whole, being ethically sound to making sure that they're there and they can benefit too, and they have access as well, and their voices are heard, because it's so easy. And I want to bring up this point, and I want to get your perspective on this. um when AI can do all these things, to me, it takes out the ability to be, what's the word I'm looking for? It takes out the ability to be more nuanced. It kind of helps us to do the general things, and we can move on, and might forget about the small things that needs attention. Um,
Mm.
because say it can, write a paper and then that's it. And we move on to the next thing. But what about the fine tasks, or the small nuanced things that need to be considered and have our attention, and commands our attention to? Sometimes I feel like it moves really fast, and we kind of keep moving and not consider, people who don't have that voice, or don't have that choice, or don't have that ability to be at the table as well.
Wow.
So I think that it's our responsibility to kind of stop and slow down, make sure that we are not overlooking, the things that really matter the most. Like, why are we working in nonprofit? Why are we servicing the community? We can't ignore the voices from the community, even though they're not there. We have to be able to make sure that they're included. And so that's where I get really nervous about, is like,
Mm.
making sure that they're there, and they're visible in this space when it goes really fast, when people are
Well,
doing things so quickly.
Dr. Jones, you touched on so many things, and we have limited time to really uh, be able to chat today for our coffee and chat. But you touched on so many things that are so important: exclusion, impact. I was at a recent conference where there were representatives from a number of large community development organizations and governmental bodies. And the topic of AI came up, and it came up from a lens of these systems, these major systems, decision-making systems within our society are looking at how to utilize AI and how they deliver their services and how they do what it is that they are charged to do.
Mhm.
And like you said, it's going so fast. It's happening so fast, and it's very powerful. It can be very useful, but could also be very dangerous because of what you were talking about, the exclusion, the voices of those that are not able to be at the table, being a part of how this technology is being developed, how the framing of the technology and how it's shaped to do what it does, what it's considering, what it processes through, and
Yeah,
how connected is it to the people that we're looking to serve.
yeah.
And again, we started off this conversation very deliberately so, speaking very general about how AI is showing up in our everyday life. We've touched on how it shows up in our professional space, but I think it's going to be, I know it is extremely important that we are more focused and deliberate about understanding how AI is impacting our professional spaces.
Mhm.
You are an educator working in a university setting. You lead this effort and this realization within academia, within your institution, because like you said, it's a reality. Students have access to these tools, and we didn't even go into all of the tools. So many directions that we can go. Um, you are an associate with C3S. We are an organization and an entity that looks at supporting community. and realizing and recognizing that AI has impacted how we do what we do in the community that we serve, the communities that we serve, how they're being served and how they're being interacted with by systems that are now utilizing AI. AI is a big deal that is very much already embedded in how we live, but it's now really rising to the forefront where more of us are aware and know what to call it and know how to recognize it.
Yeah.
But I think as professionals, we have an obligation to understand it and to engage with it in a way that allows us to continue to fully provide the services that we provide through our respective roles. So
Mhm.
I share that and I set that context to say that we're going to continue to have conversations. I want to have more conversation with you and more targeted conversation um, on how AI impacts us within our professional spaces. We're going to have a conversation about AI and the ethics of AI and its utilization within academia, within university settings, how that how the emergence and the prevalence and the relevance of AI impacts how we learn. Like you said, in the examples you gave, AI can do the same things that we were drilled on. We had to do understand sentence structure. How do you formulate a paper? How do you present an argument? Well, now you put in a couple of prompts in a particular software, it'll generate a whole paper for you. And we're not going to pretend, we're not going to put our head in the sand and say that our students, whether college, high school, middle school, elementary, they're not doing that and utilizing that.
Yeah.
So it's just a responsibility for those in the education field to understand how AI is impacting how we educate our students of all levels and how to best maximize the benefits that it brings, the speed that it allows information to flow, while still responsibly taking that pause and understanding, well, what is this happening and how do we best utilize it um, as a society? And
Yeah.
that's the education space, community development. I was at a conference. I was a community development, economic development conference I was at, where there are these conversations about AI and the utilization of AI to provide services that undergird the financial and uh, the financial well-being of our communities,
Yeah.
both as communities and as individuals in communities. AI conversations are happening. What does that even mean?
Yeah.
When you look at our nonprofit space, I've heard conversations and see a lot of um, offerings for workshops and conversations about grant writing and the utilization of AI in writing grants. And if you're utilizing AI to write the grants, don't think that the receivers of the grants and decision makers about the grants are not utilizing that technology to determine who gets the grants.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what does
Yeah.
that look like?
Yeah.
As a consulting firm, as a community development consulting firm that looks into this space, we want to do a deeper dive exploration into what's happening and how to be best situated and positioned to be of service and support in this world of AI and how it's becoming a part of how we do what we do and also who we do it for.
Yeah.
So with that, let's have some concluding thoughts from you on AI and its relevancy in our society, not only as just our everyday life, as just everyday citizens in society, but as professionals in service to society. What are your concluding thoughts for where our mindset should be when it comes to AI in our professional spaces?
Yeah. So I saw a recent study that said that about 8% of educators are using AI or teaching AI to students. However,
Eight, as in one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight.
yeah, yeah, who have
Okay.
literally adopted policies that structure, who are given some guidance, on how students should use AI at all. However, in 2023, and I'm sure it's higher now, 77% of businesses are either using AI or have a strategy on how they're going to adopt AI into their business practices, what they do, how they do it, when, how, what, where, all of that. So there's a huge gap between what students are taught, in school, and
Oh,
then what they're expected to know when they hit the workforce. So there is that gap. Also, we understand that, especially here in the Western world, that when you have industries that drive something as powerful as AI, there's potential misuse. I mean, we see it all the time. When industries are in business to make money, and their bottom line is the dollar and not the people, then we see bad things happen. And what's even a little bit scarier than that is that just recently, just at the end of 2023, our government has decided to do something as a governmental oversight of AI. So they are now starting to look at AI and how to police it in a sense. There's no like policies or kind of governmental structure around it per se, but they are starting to look at AI and starting to say, no, there needs to be some parameters, there needs to be some type of accountability when it comes to holding businesses accountable to avoid the dangers of AI. So
wow.
there's all those pieces there. I am hopeful, that our government is going to, really step in. There's states like New York and California who are actually putting in place of saying that they need to be audited. There needs to be some accountability and oversight for businesses who use AI. So there is some headway, but we are way behind in terms of industries who are literally, creating everything that they do around AI. And so how do we combat that? How do we teach, students to go and be prepared in the workforce that's 100% will be 100% driven by AI?
Mhm.
How do we help our communities through our nonprofits who tend to be a little bit slow to the table in terms of like technology and adopting it and being able to have access and using it? And then how do we kind of slow down these businesses, who are in it for profit? And I think that kind of like that space where those points meet, I think the responsibility comes from the people like you and I who know that this thing is not going to go away, that we need to be responsible, we need to learn more. If we have clients, constituents, people that we serve, it's our responsibility to learn all that we can to make sure that they are not left out. Because this is I would say 100% driven by industry. These industries are driven by money. And when you have that and little oversight, there's some concern there. So there are organizations that are trying their best to hold these entities accountable, to driving profit while driving AI forward. So there's lots of ways to get involved. There's lots of ways to learn. There's so many learning platforms out there. I would just say get involved and learn as much as you can. Ask, organizations, your leaders on what their plans are for AI. Do you support it? How are you tending to use it? And are you thinking about some of the dangers that could come about by just simply using a chatbot? I think the responsibility comes from the people like you and I who know that this thing is not going to go away, that we need to be responsible, we need to learn more. If we have clients, constituents, people that we serve, it's our responsibility to learn all that we can to make sure that they are not left out. Because this is I would say 100% driven by industry. These industries are driven by money. And when you have that and little oversight, there's some concern there. So there are organizations that are trying their best to hold these entities accountable, to driving profit while driving AI forward. So there's lots of ways to get involved. There's lots of ways to learn. There's so many learning platforms out there. I would just say get involved and learn as much as you can. Ask, organizations, your leaders on what their plans are for AI. Do you support it? How are you tending to use it? And are you thinking about some of the dangers that could come about by just simply using a chatbot, by simply making decisions based upon grants, who you're going to serve, the population that you're looking to serve and to help and support? Are they being are they being included with the data that you're pulling, the information that you're pulling through these algorithmic systems? Like, how are you going to use this to support, the community? So I would say it's all of our responsibility. We just have to make sure that we're holding ourselves accountable to learning and growing as well.
Dr. Jones, thank you. Thank you. You have given us all a lot of food for thought, a lot of context and perspective about AI and how it is so relevant in what we do and it's so embedded already in what we do, and how we have the responsibility to be aware of AI and not only aware of it, but a partner in understanding how to utilize it, to move forward the work that we are all charged with doing in our respective spaces. So again, thank you for your time and just providing this very broad overview of AI and its relevance and prevalence in our space. We want to keep this conversation going. And that's what we're going to do. So today is the first of a series of conversations about AI and how AI is showing up in our professional spaces and things to be mindful of, as well as ideas and thoughts and resources for those of us who are in these fields and in these spaces can be prepared, best prepared for how to engage in our work and how to serve in our work through this lens of AI. So we're going to do this every Friday during the month of March. We're going to have a conversation about AI and its relevance in various fields. We are going to be back here same time next week, next Friday, and we're going to look at the utilization of AI in the education arena. What's happening? Dr. Jones has already given us a precursor of some of the things happening. This is the space that she currently sits in, on behalf of a university here in the US. We want to go deeper and have a very focused conversation about AI and how it is showing up in education and some of the conversations and discourse there. So, Dr. Jones, we look forward to having more conversation with you next week along those lines. We're going to have conversation about AI and how it shows up within the community development space. We're going to have focused conversation also about AI and how it's showing up in nonprofit spaces. And then the very last Friday of this month, and that date will be Friday, March 29th, we're going to have a live session where you will be able to interact with us, ask your questions, share your thoughts and comments too, and experiences with AI. So please mark your calendars. These will take place at 11:30 a.m. Central Standard Time, 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Dr. Jones, you are so appreciated, excited for the continuation of our conversation. To those of you who have listened in for this initial conversation, thank you. And we hope that you continue to join us and share your thoughts, your perspective. Please feel free to send us your questions, send us your comments. But we want to hear your thoughts. What are you navigating in this world of AI in your respective professional spaces? Would love to hear your thoughts and also would love to have you join us live on the 29th. Again, Dr. Jones, thank you. Thank you all for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Take care.